Hey guys, Thomas Sicily Jr. here, aka Mustached Tom, here to review the movie Replicas, starring Keanu Reeves and Alice Eve. So, I actually did see some commercials for this. It held some pretty interest as I'm always fascinated with people have to say about technology and the future of technology, and this movie does go into that area. So, Keanu plays a character named Will, although I could have sworn there are several moments in this movie where they refer to him as Bill, but that's a small minor nitpick. If that is the case, if I did hear that correctly, I could have been mishearing his name a few times, especially towards the beginning, but again, small detail. Anyways, he works at this facility where they get a donor in the sense of a dead body, and this team's facility is trying to set up this dead man's brain inside a synthetic robot. So, uh, Will pulls out some what I can only refer to, unfortunately, as Iron Man tech. Iron Man just made it popular, okay? The whole, like, oh, I'm holding a thing that's computer and then I'm gonna spread it out and I'm gonna do things with my hands and it's gonna make all the computer tech stuff move. They're very Iron Man. I don't know if there was ever a movie before that did that, but that's where I thought it came from. So, anyways, he starts to turn on the robots or the synthetics' brains piece by piece. And thus, they get the synthetic to talk. However, very quickly, he destroys itself, or himself. So, he returns home in failure, where he meets his daughters, Zoe, and I believe there's one other one, but I don't know her name, and then Max. So, his coworker, I think, just visits there very often. So, he's Ed, and he plays a big part in the movie, so, you know. Anyways, Will believes that the only thing that makes a human is all about the electrical chemicals in our brains that tell us what to do, what to think, etc., etc. And that includes even the deeper emotions such as love. And the wife is like, well, there's more though. So, anyways, the family get together in a car. They're getting ready for something or rather. I think they were getting ready to go to the beach or something. I don't know. Uh, Nonetheless, they almost get hit by a truck, and then that's probably when they should have stopped the car over, but they kept going. Like, that was kind of stupid, but it is what it gets the movie going. And thus, a tree suddenly falls, and thus it hits, and the mother is hit by a pole? Question mark. I forget what she's hit by. It looked like some sort of it looks like some sort of barbed wire, but I'm not entirely sure. Um, Anyways, she does die, and then the van swerves off the road and into the water, where the only person to survive is Will. So, he calls Ed back, and he tells him to bring all this tech over. And he convinces Ed that he wants to clone his entire family. However, he is only able to bring 3 pods, but there was 4 people. So he picked Zoe to essentially not be in one of the pods, that being the daughter, the younger daughter specifically. And Ed says that he needs a generator, and thus he proceeds to somehow steal a bunch of batteries and get away with it. By the way, um, and proceeds to wipe Zoe's memory from the remaining parts of the family. And I think it's a very important note that he clearly deletes it all now. I think that's very important for what comes later. And yes, he does rage out. So the police arrive saying that a bunch of batteries are stolen, but him just saying that he wasn't the only one who got robbed was enough to put the cops away? I'm sorry, but that would be like the most suspicious thing ever. So yeah, he gets away with robbery. And, having him be the only one not robbed isn't suspicious at all. Anyways, Ed gets talked to by the boss of this company, who I'll just refer to as the boss of this company because I have no idea what his name was, and we'll say for all intents and purposes that he's the evil antagonist of the film. So, Ed calls Will and he has to go into work, and thus Will gets Ed to take over for a bit. So, as he does his little work bit, and when he returns home, Ed informs him that the family's situations have been kind of getting left behind a little bit. So, Will proceeds to look at all of their tech, all of their laptops and phones and such, seeing what each of them were doing and typing up little updates and lies about what happened to the family to ensure that no one finds out. And Ed returns 17 days later. So Will gets ready to sedate his wife specifically, and he keeps looking at the robot or the synthetic. I'll keep trying to say synthetic since that is the term that they use. But, he's trying to figure out essentially what he did wrong. So, I'm trying to remember what happens next. Sorry. Anyway, so, yes. He gets, the whole boss thing, So, he does eventually hang up, and then he drags Ed in, and he kind of puts together, after checking in on his wife specifically, that the mind needs to know that it's in the body that it's in order not to freak out. So he hooks up that device, this device thing that he used on the robot, to put it on his wife, and put everything back in there. So she shakes a bit and then calms down. Thus, Will proceeds to start to clean up his little mess, and starts to continuously wipe away all of Zoe's memories. Again, even more Zoe wipe. And again, I feel like all of that kind of... Anyways, he wakes up a little late through all that stuff, and proceeds to see his family up and about, eating food like they're starving there. The wife starts to run for a bit, but starts to feel a sudden pain in her stomach. I assume that this pain is more of a emotional pain, although it seems like it's physical at first. And again, we still see the kids sort of overeating. So Ed calls him, and he has to rush back to work. So, Will doesn't upload the next mind into the synthetic, even though Ed keeps ensuring them that, they have this deadline, and that if they don't succeed, that they will be, this company that they work at will be shut down. So he injects his own mind in the bathroom, using one of those headpiece things. And thus the family that's at home starts to proceed wondering why their technology is suddenly gone. And thus Will wants to proceed to upload his mind into the synthetic. So, the wife starts to think that there's something wrong. She clearly remembers having a daughter and having pictures of a daughter. And furthermore, the other older daughter, whose name I honestly don't know, thinks of them dying. Thus, Will proceeds to start to take away her memory. So, the wife checks up on them and sees this going on. So Will actually does tell her the truth, that they are title drop replicas. So he wants to know if she would have done the same thing. And yeah, the movie does propose an interesting question there, sure. But anyways, as the day proceeds to move on, they get to this little park, and the mother sees someone who looks exactly like Zoe. And thus, the other members of the family, specifically the other daughter, starts to say that there's some sort of other memory of Zoe popping up. The mother said that she could have sworn that they had a bunk bed specifically. So the boss arrives at their home. So he takes Will outside and actually knew the whole time that the family died and that the people inside were indeed replicas. So he says that he's going to allow Will some time to say goodbye, and has some extra backup along the way outside. And he's texting them saying to be ready to take them out. So Will knocks out the boss and proceeds to tell the wife the truth about Zoe. Even more Zoe prep. So he preps the family to go out, and they drive off. And the boss actually tracked them, all the replicas, that being specific. So they start to get hit from behind, and the wife says they want them to rush to the clinic, and so he goes. She brings them into one of the rooms that has one of those, I actually don't know what these things are called. The things they use to wake people up from those shock things. I don't know what they're called, unfortunately. So they use those to essentially fry off these little trackers that were inside them. So they kill the last tracker off, and they start to flee. So Will says, as he drives up to this pier, that he wants to go outside and stay behind, leave the family behind. So we see in a very short cut that the boss called up somebody, Ed, to give up the location. So as Will is looking, the location is gotten to, and the family is taken away. So Will arrives back on the facility where they work, and he wants him and his family to disappear. And thus Ed is killed, shot in the head, and Will starts up the machine, the synthetic. Sorry, I keep wanting to say machine. And he starts to turn on the synthetic, and it starts to move, prompting one of the guards to check up on it, and then the synthetic, which has his mind, Will's mind, in it, shooting, taking out one of the guards, and then moving into where all the other guards are, where they are shooting. So this proceeds to allow the family to get out of the situation. But Will does go back on his own to offer one final deal to the boss, who is dying, saying that he will be a replica too, for something. So, sorry about the cut, by the way. The Will replica stays behind as the boss dies. Thus, 17 days pass, and the family is now hanging at a beach. And Will arrives with Zoe? Question mark? Though everything preceding was all about, like, how she died and how she was erased and stuff. I don't know. And thus we cut to a different location where we see a synthetic of the boss very clearly, proceeding to give this other old man a deal to give him a second chance at life, and we see that the synthetic Will is in charge. And that is the end of the movie Replicas. I definitely have some issues with this movie, mainly that ending, specifically with Zoe. I felt like that was very cheap. It was very like, oh, we just want the family to have a very happy ending, so we'll just give him his daughter back, who we've seen him very clearly sacrifice. And I feel like we do see other bits of, like, the replica family adjusting in, and I feel like out of the three, I feel like the one that gets the least amount of stuff or the most amount of stuff unresolved is the son. We see him sort of like twitching or like not doing certain things properly. We had the mother with the pain, but I felt like that was like more inner pain again. I'm not entirely sure. That's how I just read the situation, so the whole thing with Zoe does technically clear that up, I suppose, but in the other daughter, the older one, she was the one who had the flashbacks and the memories, and then she had the memory wipe, but the son had the urge to do weird things, like miss his food, or like little things like that, little noticeable things that they do bring mention to at one point in the film, but they don't do anything with it. He doesn't attempt to fix it, nothing happens with it, it just sort of left there. There's that, there's the whole Zoe situation, which again I feel like was just put in there just to give the perfect happy ending. And don't get me wrong, I do appreciate this movie going for a happy ending, as I do feel like a lot of technologically based movies do end with not so happy endings, and so in that, I do think that it is sort of nice to see a movie that's about technology in the future end with, actually a good ending. However, what leads leads to that good ending, I feel like, is poor execution, however. And that's where I feel like the movie suffers the most, is poor execution. There is some okay acting here, particularly from Keanu Reeves, who does some good, has some okay crying scenes at the very most. But yeah, again, I do feel like uh, things just sort of turned in his favor. And there were definitely some things at the beginning that were like, oh, he got away from the police, things like that that were just like, oh, I don't think he would have made it past that check mark of the film. Um, that one in particular was definitely like head turned, like, actually, what? um, so yeah, this movie does have quite a few issues with it. So I would give it a 6 out of 10. I feel like if they just tight-knitted what actually happened to Zoe's memory, like, did he actually leave something behind of it? That was kind of unclear. I mean, I have to assume he did, because it's there at the end, or she's there at the end, I should say. Um, Resolving the son's little issue, again, just spending more time with this family, because, them being replicas and them learning how to live this rebuilt and reborn life, if you will, is, I feel like, the bigger part of this movie. But, yeah. Anyways, oh, and fix the thing with the police, obviously. I know that was particularly odd, so I don't know how I would fix that, but, yeah. Anyways, that is my review of Replicas, and if you enjoyed this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out that link in the description. I'll head you over to my Patreon page, and any donations are greatly appreciated. Until next time, everyone, bye-bye.